Michael Winger and Will Dawkins said that there are a couple of all-stars in his draft. Is Matas Buzelis one of them? And Kyshawn George, who is not the brother of Keontae George, is he in target at number 26? Let's talk about it next on Locked On Wizards.
You are Locked On Wizards, your daily Washington Wizards podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, everybody? It's your boy Brandon Scott again. I appreciate you guys making Locked On Wizards your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. And tonight's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. So today we're going to look at Matas Buzelis, man, and could he be a future star and a target for the Washington Wizards? And Kyshawn George, could he be a target at number 26? We're going to dive into both of these prospects. So let's get into Matas Buzelis. So looking at his tape and looking at him play and kind of looking at his scouting report, we're going to go through his pros and cons. Now, looking at his intangibles, he's 6'10", 209 pounds, forward out of Lithuania, and he played his previous season with the G League Ignite. All right, so what are some pros I like about Matas Buzelis, man? Like I said, I really like this kid, man. He's definitely one of those names where people have said he's kind of under the radar as far as he could definitely develop into not only a really good player, but maybe a potential star. So let's get into his pros and cons that I saw. Now, number one, tall. He's 6'10", so you're looking at him more of a power forward than a small forward, even though he can play small forward, but he's tall with a smooth stroke and good mobility for his size. So he can move for his size, 6'10", 209. Now, 209 with that weight allows him to kind of move quicker than most people at 6'10", because 209 is kind of that perfect weight for him to retain a lot of his mobility. Now, with that smooth stroke, his jump shot is solid. You know, he's got good form, he's got good touch, and he's capable of shooting off the dribble and off movement. So, you know, offensively with his shot. Now, we're going to talk about his shot as far as cons, but his shot is not broken. He's got good form. Again, you know, the biggest thing with him is consistency. You know, consistency is the biggest thing with him, but he's got the intangibles to, you know, again, smooth stroke, good mobility for size, good jump shot. His form and touch are really already on point, and he's capable of, again, shooting off the dribble and off movement. So those are definitely big pros. Like I said, the biggest thing is consistency, man. Looking at number two, skilled off the dribble. You know, I mean, he is crafty finishing. I mean, he's definitely has the ability to finish with style. He's also a plus athlete. He can definitely finish above the rim with ease. So he's a guy who's, look, he can posterize a few folk, man. So he's definitely going to be a welcome addition to Bilal and Denny, man. A couple of guys who know how to attack the basket. You know, this guy can definitely attack the basket, man, with ease, man, and utilize his size at 6'10". He reminds me a little bit. I mean, this ain't a comp, but I guess he reminds me of Kuz, you know, Kuz with that big frame, with his ability to attack the basket and finish. You know, that skill set kind of resonates with Kuz's skill set, man. Another pro that I like about Matas, man, he has ability, or he has a potential to be a starting caliber player, a starting level role player, that is, if he puts it all together. Like I said, he is relatively raw. Now, nothing against the G League Ignite. You've seen guys coming out of the G League Ignite like the Thompson twins and Scoot Henderson. And while these guys, and like I said, it's not a knock against the G League Ignite, who is not even a thing now because the league got rid of it. But, you know, it's not to say they can't develop talent for the draft, because if you look at the Thompson twins, they are contributing with the respective clubs. With Scoot Henderson, you know, he's definitely the future in Portland. Obviously, some growing pains. So, but the guys, you know, coming out of the G League Ignite, it takes them a little more time to develop, as you can see with Scoot Henderson. You know, even though they can provide immediate impact, it takes a little bit of time for them to get going, man. So, you know, with Buzelis, man, you know, I think that he's very raw, lots of potential. And to me, he's top 5 in his draft going off potential. You know, if you look at his size, 6'10", if you look at his weight, his mobility, his shot is a good shot, good form. Just he has to be consistent, which we're going to talk about with the cons, man. But, you know, he has a lot of potential. You know, I think that if developed right, which I think in DC, if we indeed do make the move to get him, we have the scouting and development in place to develop him right. And I think he can not only become a starting caliber player, but I think he could be an all-star one day. And because like I said, I looked at his tape. I looked and I go beyond highlights but looking at his tape, really looking at his scouting report, I think that he could develop it to a star. And I think that when Michael Winger and Will Dawkins said that when you look at his draft, obviously this is not a draft where you're going to find an immediate starter, a player that's going to have immediate impact, but there's a lot of potential. And you potentially could see 2, 3, maybe 4 all-stars in this draft. Now, I get it, people are low in this draft. And yeah, it is a highly developmental draft. I mean, you're not going to get out of that. So it's definitely a highly developmental draft, but that works for a team like the Wizards where we're early on in a rebuild. And right now it's about player evaluation and development. And I think that, again, with the scouting and development in place, with coaches like Brian Keefe and David Vanderpool, who are known for development and the staff behind them in scouting, I think that we have the right people in the right place for a player like Matas to flourish in the 202. So with any pros, you have cons, right? So let's get into the cons. All right, number one, kind of already brought it up. Inconsistent three-point shooter. Struggles to consistently shoot from deep. Now, I see him as a guy who could potentially be a 3-level scorer. Now, like I said, his shot is not broken. I think he just needs to find touches. He needs to find consistency. And while if you look at the roster makeup of this team, obviously I see him better as a 4. Now, you could play the 3, but at the 4, obviously we have Kyle Kuzma at the 4. So, and even if Kyle Kuzma is eventually moved at some point, Denny Avdia can fill in at the 4 and then probably pull out the 3. So there's a lot of intangibles, a lot of moving pieces. But in short, kind of the point I'm getting to is you don't have to rush him to start. He's a guy who can go on the second unit. Patrick Baldwin Jr., he's a guy who could play the 3. So he could be a nice little tandem on the second unit with Patrick Baldwin Jr. And I think that if developed right, he could potentially be a starter in 2 years, in my opinion, or 2 to 3 years. So I think that he's definitely a guy that will start in the second unit. He needs to be developed. And, while he's a guy who could definitely be the power forward of the future for the Wizards, the Wizards don't have to feel compelled to have to start him. You got guys in place with Kyle Kuzma if he's not moved, and Denny Avdia. And, even if you want to go big with Marvin Bagley, you have 3 guys right there who could potentially be the starting power forward for the Wizards next year. And so you don't have to feel compelled to start Matas because I don't think he needs to start right away. He's raw. He's got potential, but he needs to develop. All right, some more cons to look at. All right. Limited interior defensive presence and struggles with closeouts and contesting shots. I'll say this. You do see rim protection potential. You do see defensive potential. Towards the end of the year with him with the G League Ignite, you saw the defense got better. Now, closing out and contesting shots, he definitely has to work on. But rim protection, I think, is something that is going to come along on the defensive side for him a lot sooner than contesting shots. I think that area of his defense is going to come along relatively quickly because with his size, he has shown potential to be a rim protector at the power forward position, which, future-wise, if you look at the center position with Vucevic, I definitely think we're going to eventually add a center, whether it's in this draft or next year's draft. And I know it was some people saying, we talk about the future at power forward, next year's Cooper Flag. And I told you guys, man, it's not guaranteed you're going to get Cooper. And there's a lot, and I get it, this draft coming up, or not the one coming up, but the one next year, 2025, is definitely the one where it's our star-studded and a draft where you're going to find some starting caliber talent. But I wouldn't let that dismiss Matas Buzelis, man. I think that he could be the future in DC, man. Because I said, again, this is a highly developmental draft, and you can very well find 2-3 players in this draft that be long-term pieces for the Wizards going forward, man. And it's all about development. So I'm not going to say that I'm high on the draft like it's going to be a generational draft because it's obviously not going to be generational. But I definitely think that people are kind of underestimating this draft. Again, if you're an organization that's looking, because look, a lot of teams are shopping their picks, and that's going to be leading to, we're going to talk about that in a minute, but there's a lot of teams like the Rockets, the 3rd overall pick is now tradable. So there's a lot of teams who are competing. They look at this draft and saying, look, we're not going to find starting caliber players who are going to be able to immediately help us. So, and obviously we're going to talk about it. And we've talked about it previously with the last couple of videos about Kyle Kuzma and where he could fit, and Houston could be one of those teams. But kind of getting back to the point, this is a highly developmental draft, and I think that Matas fits that mold. All right, let's get into a couple more cons real quick and who I comp him to. He disappears offensively when shots aren't falling, lacks elite facilitation skills to be a primary playmaker, and struggles with ball handling and traffic. So he's not a guy who's going to put the ball on the floor, create for others or himself. He's a guy that kind of has to be set up. And I think that, not to say he can't develop those parts of his offensive game. And, especially looking at, disappearing offensively, I think that comes with coaching. Brian Keith's going to get on him, man. And he's definitely going to keep his head in the game because you can't disappear, man. But, I mean, as far as facilitation, he may never be a guy who's going to be, like a Denny, who at 6'9" is a guy who's going to be able to facilitate and be a playmaker and put the ball on the floor. But I think that he could definitely work on those areas, and there's potential there. And kind of the fourth con, kind of to the point of Matas, he has the potential to be a master of none type of player, lacking any standout skills. I think the biggest skills you can look at with Matas is that with consistency, with touches, he's going to end up being a 3-level scorer, in my opinion. I think he shows glimpses and potential of being the guy who can score at all 3 levels. So, Matas, real quick before we move on, who are some comparisons I see with Matas? At 6'10", 209 pounds. I'm looking at Nick Batum, former player out of France, former Charlotte Hornet, Portland Trailblazer. Nick Batum, 3-and-D guy. I think that is a really good comp. And Franz Wagner. If you look at Franz Wagner at 6'10", he is a two-way player who is a sniper and he can defend. And I think that that's a good comp as far as a long-term comp. Eventually, Franz Wagner is a player that, Matas can develop to be. Not coming out of the draft, not yet, but I think that is a good, Franz Wagner is a good comp for a long-term vision. So we're going to get into Kyshawn George real quick. Before we do, tonight's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Now, I go to games all the time, right? And, if I'm not going to Wizards games, I'm going to Commanders games, DC Defenders games, JMU's my college team. I'm going to baseball games, the Nats, the O's, minor league. I go to games all the time. I've dealt with all the ticket apps and services, and to me, Gametime's the best, man. Gametime just takes the cake, man, because Gametime makes the NBA Finals tickets and getting NBA Finals tickets even faster and easier. Prices on Gametime app actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off, which is big to me. With killer last-minute deals, all in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. Because there's a lot of things you love about Gametime as opposed to other apps, right? Priority, last-minute tickets. Save up to 60% off buying last-minute tickets for not only sports events, but concerts, comedy shows, and theaters. Flash deals. Save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or event. All in prices. Talking to this feature shows the total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. And seat views. Get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy, because look, some places, especially FedEx, man, you might catch yourself behind one of those beams, man. So definitely check that out, man. So do yourself a favor. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA Finals tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase, y'all. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day long? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Lord, make the switch today to Locked On Sports Today. A free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news. Streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. All right, let's get into it. Let's get into Kyshawn George. And let me start with saying this, guys. Obviously, we shout out to Matt Moderno and Domo. They were guests on the show last night. Very good episode. If you haven't checked it out, definitely check it out, man, because we had a lot of fun. I'll say this. I learned from a friend of mine, man, that Kyshawn George was the brother of Kyshawn George of the Utah Jazz, and I was missing for him, man. And that's on me. Like I said, I know that 99.9% of y'all ain't tripping, but y'all know me, man. I really hold what I do at a high standard. I'm really tough on myself, man. There's a military mindset. And you guys know that any kind of sources, any kind of news, man, it's straight from the source, man. Everything is verified. And, and like I said, the fact that I am a credentialed member of the media for the Wizards, I like getting information that is not only true, but direct from the source, man. So that's on me. Like I said, I know y'all ain't tripping, but y'all know me, man. I take things hard on myself because I hold myself to a standard. So that's on me, because he indeed is not the brother of Kyshawn George, but he is a target at number 26, and I'm going to tell you why. So let's get into Kyshawn George, man. And I like this kid, man. I think this kid, or this young man that is, he's going to be a really good player. And I think that he is definitely going to be available at 26. Now, Kyshawn George, 6'8", 205-pound wing out of the University of Miami, the U, originally coming out of Switzerland. So looking at some pros that I like about Kyshawn, man, because there's a lot to like. Number one, at 6'8", 205, guard skills. He has playmaking upside. He actually came up as a point guard. So, I don't know how many people watched The Last Dance when they were talking about Scottie Pippen, where, Scottie Pippen came up as a guard. And then, when he started getting taller, he retained a lot of those guard skills. And if you look at Scottie Pippen, man, and that's kind of who I really compare Kyshawn George to, man. Scottie Pippen, which is kind of a point forward potential. He's 6'8", a guy who can definitely run the offense, and he can definitely move as a guard. Look to facilitate for other people, but his offensive upside definitely is going to keep him on the wing. So I definitely look at him as having a point forward potential. All right, so other things I like about Kyshawn George: great shooter on and off the ball. And I think that could definitely translate to the next level. I think he's going to be a really good shooter in the NBA. He's definitely a really good shooter. Number three, he takes care of the ball. You don't see a lot of turnovers with Kyshawn George, man. He definitely protects the ball, which is something that we definitely need in DC. Now, again, with any pros, there are cons, right? So what are some cons about Kyshawn George? Well, defensively, his foot speed. That's the biggest con with him is his foot speed. He tended to struggle against faster players, man. And which, at the University of Miami, he definitely, if you look at the conference they play some really good teams, man. So in the ACC, so your UNCs, your Dukes. So he has definitely played against top flight competition, and against faster players he has struggled. So I think defensively, that's the big area they're gonna have to work on if indeed they bring him here in DC, because look, he's got potential, especially on the offensive side, man, especially his ball skills. Offensively, oozing with potential. And it's not to say he's broken defensively, is that area is going to have to be developed, man. And I think that, again, high marks to Brian Keefe. I think eventually, when they finally hire him, he's going to be the guy. With him and David Vanderpool, you have coaches who are going to coach him up. You have, scouting and development. That component of the Washington Wizards is key. Outside of culture, in which Brian Keefe is another catalyst of creating the culture here in DC. We have everything in place for you. So, I've thrown a lot of prospects at you guys, man. And the biggest thing I'm trying to say about all this is that I rest easy, not only with this front office, but with this coaching staff, because we have the scouting and development in place, which we have not always had in DC. So I think whatever young players we bring in here, because we kind of touched base on that the last episode, where, I asked both my guests that, and both their answers kind of said, whoever they bring in, they believe in the front office, which I agree with them, and they believe in the scouting and development. And I think that's the biggest key that you make with this team, is that whatever young talent they bring here, they're going to develop them right. They're going to scout. They're going to find the right pieces in this draft, and they're going to develop them right. And I think that Kyshawn George, 26, is definitely attainable. And obviously, look, going forward, we're going to talk about a lot of options at number 26. Even though I think they may trade up, I think there's a lot of opportunities for them to trade up, which is definitely going to be the next episode. We're going to talk about the next episode. We're going to talk about what picks, including Houston Rockets pick, could the Wizards potentially obtain to get back into the lottery and pick up another high impact player in this draft. So, all right. So, in closing about Kyshawn George, like I said, at number 26, he's a guy that I think we should look at picking up at number 26, man, because he's oozing with potential. He utilized that 6'8" frame, man. And like I said, he reminds me a lot of Scottie Pippen. Not to say he's going to have the same career trajectory as Scottie Pippen. I'm hoping he does, because Scottie Pippen to me is a Hall of Fame. He's a Hall of Fame guy, man. So he's definitely, that's definitely a comparison that you want to play up to. So again, Kyshawn George, you guys comment below. Let me know what you're thinking. Like I said, the next episode, we're going to look at a few more options at number 26 for the Wizards. And we're going to look at, there's a few more teams that are willing to trade their picks. Should the Wizards be one of those teams to try to move back into the lottery? So we're going to talk about it in the next episode. So again, appreciate you guys, man. As always, the success on this channel is due to y'all, man, because all the love y'all show me, man, and tuning in, taking your time to watch Locked On Wizards. I definitely appreciate you guys a lot. So Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. So everybody, I will see you guys tomorrow night. Hail to the Wizards and peace. See you guys later.